Hi everyone, Dennis Foley from Acoustic Fields. Today we're going to look at some photos that we found on Reddit. We're going to continue with our do's and don'ts series. It's really good to look at people's setups and critique, how they're set up and ways that you can improve quality. So in this first photo, the only reason I visit my uncle, you can see that the speakers are once again right next to the wall. And I see this constantly. It's almost like we try to put as much gear as we can into the smallest amount of space as we have. And that's just not a good recipe for quality, high resolution sound. Just think of yourself as sound energy coming out of those speakers. The first thing you see when you're dealing with reflections is a wall. So if you're sound energy, you want to be in free space. You want to be able to move freely through space to reach your ears. But we know that we're going to have a primary reflection off those side walls, and then that primary reflection is going to travel to the opposite wall, and then you're going to have a secondary, and then you're going to come back to the original wall and have tertiary reflections. And that's just three. There's many, many others that you have to deal with, but those are three that we can use to illustrate what you don't want to have happen. This is obviously a theater setup with center channel speakers, but we have subwoofers right next to speakers. I'm not a big fan of that because speakers produce energy in three ways: from the electronics, the amplifiers, the cabinet, and the drivers. And it's all about managing resonances and unwanted pressures. And if we put a pressure producing device next to a speaker, we're going to be increasing the pressure inside of that cabinet. And you don't want to do that. So subwoofers next to speakers, we've done a lot of rooms, and most of the time in our setups, subwoofers aren't even close to the speakers. And if this individual here would set up on the long wall, which it looks like in this room is possible, the sound quality would be dramatically improved. So this is a good example of set up on the longer wall. You'll have a better definition, you'll have a better sound stage, you'll have a much wider sound stage. And that's a good thing all the way across the board. Let's take a look at another one here. Similar situation, lots of gear jammed into a small amount of space, right? So we have gear, speakers right next to the wall again. And one wonders, am I hearing more of the wall or am I hearing more of the speaker? And when your speakers are that close to the wall, you have two issues. You have a pressure issue. You can increase low frequency distortions 3, 4, 5 dB if you're next to a wall. And you don't want that. I mean, the ultimate goal is resolution. And also the premise that we must start with is do no harm. We don't want to do any harm by having an improper setup. And it looks like we have subwoofers once again next to the speakers. I don't know where this all came about, but it's a common thing that we see. And most of the time, subwoofers shouldn't even be close to speakers. Subwoofers must correspond to the dimensions of the room. They don't have anything to do with placing them in front of you. This pressure is omnidirectional. All right, my friend's father has a pretty mean setup is the next situation. Once again, we're being mean to the speakers. We're setting them up right next to the walls. And that's an example of what not to do. Looks like we have a lot of objects, a lot of shelving on the sidewalls. That's never good. The shelves turn into speakers, and you can measure that. It's not difficult to do. Just get an SPL meter and measure it close to the shelving when you're playing music. And then measure it out into the room. You'll see a dramatic difference. So you don't want to create more distortions with your setup. You want to create less. And once again, we have the gear. It looks like this is a theater setup with a center channel speaker. We have the gear as high as the mid-range drivers. You can't have that either. Draw an imaginary line from those mid-range drivers to connect each other, and don't put gear the bottom of the drivers. Don't put gear above that line. It's not a good practice. Remember, our goal is not to create more distortions. Our goal is to minimize. From a living room sub photo, setup on the long wall is good, but look at the right channels. The right front channel and the right side channel. We've got our old nemesis, the glass window. That's never going to be a good situation. I think this room is a little bit too small for a multiple channel setup, although it's amazing that I've done this before myself, so I'm laughing because I see myself in this photo. But it's difficult to create the illusion of space when you're near field centered and near field monitoring side channels and rear channels and all of that. You get a really focused image, no doubt about that, but you don't get a spatiality, you don't get an openness that you want. This is really, if you think about it, this is kind of a multiple channel setup that's set up like two channels. You know, you would sit close in the equilateral triangle with the left and the right channels and have a lot of definition and clarity in the setup that way. High resolution, you know, you're sitting near field. So this is really a near field theater setup, which is unique, but it's been done before. And a lot of problems with that window. We can't tell from the photo what's going on with the left channel, but we've got a really bad situation with the right channel. Now we have drapes, so that's good, but we've come across this situation many times. Drapes have unpredictable rates and levels of absorption. They're not that effective. We have found drapes that are effective, which are the theater drapes. Now, the theater drapes are very, very heavy, multiple layers. Here we go again, multiple layers. It's always a good idea in anything. In construction of your room, cabinet building, it's always good to have multiple layers because you're dealing with vibrational acoustics. But we found with drapes that about 26 ounces per square foot is a good number for density and weight, and most residential draperies don't even come close to that. So, and theater curtains are very, very expensive, but the performance of this system would be dramatically improved with those. It would be dramatically improved also with panels that had the proper rate and level of the distortion. So these are 4 photos of things that we see all the time. They represent common system error setups. But I think to summarize, try the long wall. Everybody wants to jam a lot of gear into the small space of a rectangular room. Rectangular rooms are good for sound quality because the problems are predictable and consistent. And we can treat that predictability and consistency. But setup along the long wall will minimize those sidewall reflections. And those sidewall reflections really have a negative impact on image and focus of everything that you're trying to create. Hope this helps. Thank you.
Thank you for watching this video, and if you liked it, please give us a thumbs up. We also have a newsletter that you can subscribe to, so please do that because we offer special price discounts to only those on our newsletter. And then don't forget about our forum. We have started a forum on our own website where people ask questions, and I usually get a chance every couple of days to look at it. There's an interchange between people on the forum, and we'll give you real answers on a regular basis, so that'll help you. Thank you.